Before we begin our reading of the play, I wanted to just do a quick analysis of some of the themes we're going to be coming across and little things that we should pay close attention to. This is not my work. I am simply breaking down an analysis that was already done by greatsavers.com. So let's get started. Now, it says one of the most obvious characteristics of Act 2 is that it is very similar to Act 1, and this has a lot to do with the play's roots in folk storytelling. So that's something we want to remember, especially this word folk, so important. Many folk tales across cultures use repetitive structures. And then this person makes comparison to things like Goldilocks, with how with the three bears, with Goldilocks and the three bears, there are certain pattern of actions that happen each time before a particular story is told. No, so in this play, Grosjean and Mijan both fail in very similar ways. So that's a similarity that we have. This repetitive structure is used to make the story more memorable. So remember, repetition is used to help make that story more memorable. So let's try to remember that. And it helps to emphasize certain aspects of folk telling. Moving on. So in this particular context of TiJean and his brothers, the parallel between Mijan and Grosjean's stories draws attention to their similarities. So that's another thing. So through repetition, we are able to make comparison of the behavior of these brothers. So it looks first on a superficial level that the two brothers are different in that one is very strong, meaning physical, while the other tends to be an intellectual. However, their approaches to the devil end up being very similar. Both brothers decide to rely on their own patience, trusting in their ability to outlast the machinations of the devil. Furthermore, both brothers have similar values, which would be expected, raised by the same person. Each is only interested in accumulating. Here we see this topic again, wealth and power. In the end, sadly, they end up with the same fate because of the same values. Continuing, now in the world of money, white men. So we see this issue of race coming up again, race slash racism. You might even call it the power play, the power struggle. We see those coming up again. It says no matter how patient the two brothers are, they cannot outlast him because he can compel them to do impossible tasks while they cannot make him do anything. So that's that issue of power there again. The debate between Mijan and the devil ultimately hinges on these issues of wealth and power, even if it isn't work that directly drives him to frustration. So there is an impossible task given that we're going to see coming up with the goat. But what ultimately makes Mijan lose his cool, so we have the issues of anger and lack of self-control, etc. It's a planter's insistence that there is no difference between himself and the goat. Imagine that comparison to an animal, and of all animals, a goat. It is a little surprising to see this opinion in the mouth of the devil, given that the play so far has not only emphasized the importance of treating animals with respect, but has questioned the differentiation between humans and animals. So we're going to pay attention to that going forward, the whole issue of animals portrayal in the book. However, oh boy, here we go with the issues of race again. The context of anti-blackness helps make sense of why the devil's argument is so insidious. When the planter says to Mijan, and yet, poor shaving monkey, the animal in you is still in evidence. We're going to discuss that a little bit later. He calls the middle brother a monkey and an animal. Come on, with race relations, we know that any comparison to an animal, especially a monkey, is a little bit tricky. Continuing, this comparison draws on a long racist history of white supremacy, comparing black people to apes. This is so upsetting to read, but we know, at least we know what to expect. Importantly, the planter says the animal in you rather than the animal in us. So it's not that the planter is comparing humans to the animals or humans to monkeys. No, it is specifically you as the black man. You are the animal. You are the monkey. Okay. Oh boy. Anyhow, let's continue. His statement doesn't question the difference between humans and animals, but instead suggests that black people are animals while white people are elevated. For TiJean, this assertion is especially threatening because it removes his intelligence. And remember, that's very important for him. That is one of his characteristics, the attribute which allows him to understand himself. So he is tied to his intelligence. Okay, but that's short for intelligence. Okay, that's who he sees himself as. That's how he defines himself. So we can see why this would be so insulting to him. As in Act 1, the messaging of this scene is therefore twofold and even somewhat internally contradictory. On the other hand, we are once again encouraged not to be like TiJean, who clings so tightly to the difference between humans and animals and who is suckered in by the pull of money and the trickery of the old man. Yet on the other hand, we recognize that he's also operating within an impossible situation. As a black man, so we're going to see race is so heavily portrayed here. So we see that as a black man, it is difficult for him to question the difference between humans and animals because his own value of a person is constantly under threat. So it's like he knows that something is wrong, but he is not really able to speak up against it. We see the power struggle at play here. Rather than a purely individualistic message on how to confront evil, Walker also suggests, that broader oppressive contexts determine what we can do. This line is so important. Broader oppressive contexts determine what we can do. So we see this in some Caribbean contexts that even though we have intelligent, beautiful, smart people, they are limited by what some people call the system or just factors that are bigger than them. All right, let's get ready to read.